Well, we can't talk about social media in South Africa without acknowledging the hugely powerful cultural identity known as Black Twitter.
Week on week, this online community drives conversations and trending topics in South Africa, from engaging on national issues to rallying behind Caster Semenya. And of course, we also hear there are tweets around US Twitter, "We're coming for you." To help us understand what all of this means, we're joined by Brands Eye CEO JP Kloppers, and he's here to help us understand the interesting insights on the social media space. It's lovely to see you here and not through the Cape Town camera. Black Twitter. I think everybody has their own understanding of what Black Twitter is. So what's the official word on the street on what we're talking about?
As we've looked at it, I think we've realized that it's a very big concept. So it's not just in people's minds. I think South Africans are scared of race on some issues. And so to talk about Black Twitter almost seems controversial. So we thought, well, let's look at the statistics at least, just to quantify it. How many people...
Did someone create Black Twitter, or has it just happened?
No, I think it's just happened. As black people in South Africa have started tweeting, Black Twitter's emerged. It's not just a South African concept, it's all around the world, but it's now become a kind of an identity, if you like, what's happening on Black Twitter. And you sometimes see these parallels or sort of people talking in opposition to each other across different, white Twitter and Black Twitter.
So what's the fundamental difference between the conversation that would happen on Facebook, as an example, versus the conversation that would happen on Twitter? And we're seeing the graphic up there now.
So what we're looking at here is the demographic breakdown between the two platforms. On the left, we've got Twitter. On the right, we've got Facebook. And we see that on Twitter, the red block is Black Twitter. So 20% of the conversation is Black Twitter, 16% is white Twitter, and that's really the distinction.
Is Black Twitter just black people tweeting, or is it certain conversations that black people are talking about?
Black people tweeting. So we've analyzed the names of people, and where our classifier has got a very high probability of knowing that this person is a black person because of their name, then we can look at it in that sense. So the reason that doesn't add up to 100 is because there's a big conversation that is unknown.
Yeah.
We don't know which, but because it's a representative sample, we can use these stats. On the right, we see that Facebook is more heavily skewed towards a more white conversation that happens on Facebook than on Twitter.
All right, so if we move on from that, so the kind of topics that Black Twitter has been latching onto in South Africa, what are some of the big things that they're talking about?
I think just before we get there, it's important to note just the reach of Twitter versus Facebook. Because in one of the slides that'll come up in a second, we see what we call OTS, opportunities to see, and we see it's just huge.
There it is, talk to us there.
So this is eyeballs that have the potential of seeing a tweet or a Facebook post. So when I share it and I have 500 followers, there are 500 potential impressions. We know that's not the actual number, but it gives you an indication of reach. And Twitter is just so much more powerful in its breadth of reaching people. So we see that Black Twitter is really that red 75 million opportunities to see in South Africa on Twitter, which is a staggering amount.
That's more than the population.
It's more than the population,
I think what worries me about this figure is that if we take a look at the themes, and I know we're going to talk about that now, Black Twitter has also become synonymous with almost cyberbullying. So if they latch onto something that somebody said and they don't agree with it, it's almost like a whole mob that will come and address you. And if you look at that, now, that's 75 million people potentially.
Not 75 million people. I think that's an important distinction. It's opportunities to see. So I tweet and you tweet, and we have 100 followers that are in common. That'll be counted as 200.
I see.
That makes sense?
I see, yeah.
And so that's kind of multiplied across a whole population. There's a lot of people in common between the different conversations happening. It more just gives an indication of the level of the conversation, that there's a lot of stuff happening.
And so the themes of the conversations we can understand by looking at the dominant hashtags around Black Twitter. What do those look like?
So if we look at the dominant hashtags, so in the last 6 weeks, of the 50 biggest hashtags, 46% of them were related to TV and radio. And if we look at the breakdown of these, just in those kind of the entertainment ones, 86% of that is driven by Black Twitter.
Sure.
That's massive. It means that we actually have a huge population. What the white people are doing, I don't know when it comes to Twitter, but certainly there's a lot of rallying around entertainment that we see on Black Twitter, and it's big. And for example, Our Perfect Wedding, you can see that each of these things trends Our Perfect Wedding on a Sunday. And as the show airs, you see people commenting on what they want to see, what they prefer, what they like, what they don't like.
What's interesting about this is that actually a lot of these shows are on Sundays. So, I mean, Ask a Man's a daily show on radio, but Idols is on Sunday. Our Perfect Wedding is on Sunday. Isiba is a daily, Monday to Friday.
When do you have
Rockwell
time to watch all these things?
No, I only ever watch TV on Sundays, and this is all I ever watch.
Yeah, I had to ask a man to figure out what all the shows were.
Yeah, well, they're not familiar to me.
Fair enough.
So,
But the issues like politics and elections, that's not, I mean, it's not classified as something that people find entertaining. This is television, fiction.
Correct.
Shows.
Correct. And we're going to look at just, so how do brands leverage this? How do they use influencers and Black Twitter, and how does that play out not just in the entertainment space but in the corporate space?
Yeah.
So if we've got two examples to look at tonight, and the one is on Clover.
Yeah.
So what we see with Clover, here we look at engagement, people speaking about Clover on social media platforms in South Africa, and we see as they use either sponsorships or events. So the sponsorship is the FC Baroka sponsorship, and then Minnie Dlamini, they got her into their Tropica Island of treasure.
Yeah.
Okay. And she only tweeted 10 times or posted 10 times. And that drove 30% of the engagement for that whole time.
That's amazing.
And July was 240% up on June.
She has over 1 million followers, so that again comes back to the issue of reach.
So it would appear that she has a reach not just on Black Twitter, because we see both kind of black and white increasing over that time. But if we then look at Telkom, we see they back Idols. Idols moved from Mnet to Mzansi Magic this year.
Yes.
And just in that move, they've had 4 times more conversations on Mzansi in the first 6 months of 2016 than the whole of 2015 on Mnet, which is staggering. And here you see actually them backing Idols on Mzansi Magic has massively driven the Black Twitter conversation as people have engaged with Idols. And that's been very successful for Telkom.
Is it translating into sales, into more product buy-in? I mean, comment, yes, but sales?
I think what it does, if we look at the next slide, you'll see we kind of strip out the conversation which is related to sponsorship, and we look at the conversation without that. And there we see it's actually a very different story. So to come to your question, David, we don't know yet. I think that's where looking at the kind of longitudinal industry views that we do, you know, for every month we look at the best and the worst in the different industries. And we do see Telkom edging forward. They're actually getting better in that. You know, customers are starting to feel better loved by Telkom, for lack of a better word. Whether that's related to them providing better services or them actually deploying different methodologies on social media, I think that's where it's hard to tell in the short term.
It would have been interesting to see the backlash they got for their Women's Day advert, because they put up a Women's Day advert with only white women and said something about, we're so proud of your efforts. And Black Twitter went wild and said, but where are the black women? Yeah,
and that was, I think, for them a case of just, because they had a whole campaign, and that was one of the images.
And that just happened to be the first image.
It happened to be the one on Facebook. They went in a different order. So I think it was partly unlucky, partly just poor strategy.
Social media is so dicey.
But it can just kind of burst into flames, as you say, very quickly.
Very quickly. Well, let's turn our focus to the trend of the week now. I suspect that we are going to be looking at all things Olympics. So it is the Olympics?
Of course.
Yes.
Of course, the Olympics, yeah.
I wonder if it would have been without Wade van Niekerk and Caster Semenya.
No. I mean, if we look at the word cloud, that's it. Just the conversation just about Wade van Niekerk and Caster Semenya is almost 5 times bigger than Idols. So to put it in context, it's big. It's only like a few % behind the whole run-up to the elections in terms of the conversation that happened in South Africa.
So, but Wade van Niekerk was just, everyone was just thrilled.
Yeah.
And yes, he had a chance, but no one expected breaking the world record and the way he ran.
Yeah, exactly.
Caster Semenya, a different kind of case. Yes, she's going to win probably, but there's the controversy about gender.
And she hasn't even run yet. I mean, if I missed something, unless I missed something.
Yeah, not the final.
2:30 a.m. on Sunday.
So the final hasn't happened. You know, so she's still got her moment in the sun. So we're going to see a lot more conversation about that. But I think, we've often speak about social media coming of age. And I think this has been a case of South Africans can be proud just how both black and white Twitter, it was Twitter in general in South Africa that stood up in defense. And 2 years ago, they didn't do that.
Was it a kind of nationalistic contest here where South Africans tweeting at Americans who were tweeting back? Is that how it works?
No, I don't think it was so much them tweeting back. I think it's more drowning out any voices coming from anywhere else.
Maybe put this into context for us, JP. How does this compare to, for example, the conversations around the local government elections as we were in the midst of electioneering about a week or two ago? The Olympic conversation versus that conversation.
So just the conversation about Caster and Wade van Niekerk is pretty much the same size as the elections conversation.
Wow, the whole election conversation.
Whole election.
Can
you imagine?
Can we expect then that come Sunday morning, when Caster clinches gold, that we're going to expect a spike again?
Yeah, definitely.
And what sort of numbers are we talking here? Numbers of tweets?
Well, the elections we're looking at 130,000 people talking, so this is of that order of magnitude.
Sure. People
talking about the Olympics. Just beautiful. It's so great to see South Africans rallying behind our sportsmen.
And of course, outside of South Africa, there are other athletes that I think everybody's following. I was watching Usain Bolt this morning when I was at gym, and one would suspect that they would also be key drivers of everybody wanting to talk a little bit about them.
Correct, yeah. For tonight's purposes, we looked at the South African conversation, and Usain Bolt, because of his association with Wade van Niekerk and that kind of interplay that happened between them, he's emerged as a big theme in the South African conversation as well. But on a global stage, he's next level, him and Michael Phelps.
I think it's interesting to even go back to the hashtag, because the hashtag is hands off Caster. We've seen that hashtag in other contexts. For example, when President Jacob Zuma was under fire, it became hands off our president by the Women's League deciding to defend him. We even saw it during, when did President Jacob Zuma have his rape trial?
2007.
2007-8. Yeah, that hashtag sort of was birthed from there. So is this crystallizing into a South African
I don't
identity?
That the
hands off, yes.
The hands off, I'm not sure. That I'm not sure. We'd have to go and look at that. But certainly the kind of crystallization around a hashtag for people to rally behind, that definitely.
Yeah. Well, JP, as always, we have to end somewhere, but the tweeting goes on forever, it seems. Never stops, never sleeps, like the big cities.
Yeah, good.
That's Brands Eye CEO JP Kloppers.